Back in February of 2015, one would describe that winter here in Branson, Missouri as particularly cold. And in the latter part of January, going into February, this area received quite a bit of snow. This is the Cedar Ridge Primary School right here. And on the 11th of February, 2015, this school received a brand new pupil that was from outside of the area. That student's name was Jasmine Miller. She was 6 years old when she first arrived at that school. Now, I'm sure you guys could remember when you were little kids, when you would first go to school, you would be very nervous and very timid. Are they going to be nice to me? Are they going to be mean to me? You're pretty shy. So the teacher announces to the class, "This is Jasmine. Say hello to Jasmine, everybody." And they say hello to her. And even though she was very shy, she would quickly make new friends at that school. Now, at that time, there were snow days going on at the school, so she wasn't continuously in the school for the first week or so that she was a student there. This right here is the proverbial strip area here in Branson, Missouri when it comes to activities that the entire family can enjoy. You got go-kart races, you got a Ferris wheel, you got a dinner theater right there. Water park is closed down for the season, and you got other restaurants, things of that nature. And also you have a slew, if you will, of inexpensive hotels / motels. And sometimes when people move to Branson, Missouri, they do stay in these more inexpensive motels just to get settled until they find out exactly if they're going to buy a home, if they even like the area, if they find a more permanent place to live, so forth and so on. So Lori Ballou with her husband Jason, they bring Jasmine Miller down here. Now, I don't know why the family moved down here, for maybe job opportunities or what have you. So it's Lori, who's Jasmine's mother, and Jason, he's the stepdad. So they come down here and they rent a room at the Windsor Inn. February 21st, 2015, it's about 4:45. The family decides to walk from their motel room to this Wendy's behind me. It's about a less than a 3-minute walk from their doorstep. So the family comes over here to grab something to eat. And when they're done, they turn around and they go back to their place. Now, Jason, Jasmine's asking, "Hey, can I go outside and play?" Now, mind you, it's pretty cold that day, but he says, "Fine, just stay close to the house." So he leaves the door open and the blinds open, and he's keeping an eye on her. So he thinks. This is the place that used to be the Windsor Inn, now has changed ownership. So this would be the general area right here where Jasmine was playing. Now, the family had got back from Wendy's about 5:45. So mind you, it's getting cold, and Jason, about 30 minutes later, goes outside to call Jasmine in. He opens his door and she's nowhere to be found. He goes around this building, around the other building, coming out here, looking up and down. She's nowhere in sight. About 15 minutes later, after he discovers that she's missing, he decides to call 911. So Branson police arrive to the scene. We have a lost child. Now, by this time now, she's been gone Not too long, but definitely long enough. She's only 6 years old. We don't know where she's at. The fire department next comes up to the scene, and they're going to help in the search for this girl. Now, we're first going to want to start in this motel. So the fire department, along with the manager at the time, they start knocking door to door, asking if anybody has seen this little girl, Jasmine Miller. She was last seen wearing a black coat with blue jeans. They're knocking and knocking and knocking, and they get to this building right here, and they start walking down that catwalk right there, and they arrive at room 155. Now, in that room, a man lives there. His name is John P. Roberts. They knock on his door and they say, "Hey, have you seen this girl?" He says, "No." They say, "Do you mind if we search your residence?" He says, "Come on in." They go in his room, and under his bed is Jasmine Miller, and she's dead. Immediately, John Roberts is arrested and charged with first-degree murder in the death of 6-year-old Jasmine Miller. So he's taken down to the police station, and he is taken to an interrogation room. And, well, we're going to want to know what happened, why you did this, so forth and so on. Now, here's where things get, I don't want to use the word complicated, but this is where things get muddled. So as they're talking to him, they quickly realize that, well, this guy's high out of his mind. He's been smoking meth for the last 3 or 4 days. And when they do a bit of a background check on him, he doesn't have much of a criminal record. He was arrested for assault, which he was placed on probation for 5 years from 1994 to 1999. He was arrested, I believe, in the early 2000s for possession of a controlled substance. And he had just got arrested the month previous for breaking into somebody's apartment at a place not too far from here and stealing $70 out of their room. So that month previous, when he was arrested in January, he was bailed out for $171 by his brother. So he doesn't have any violence on his record. But again, we want to know what happened. So when you get through all of the talking and yammering, basically what happened is this guy lured this poor little girl into his room, promising her some kind of a snack, cake, or something along those lines. And when she got there, he strangled her. Now, it was his intentions after she was dead to molest her. And the only reason why he didn't do that is because, well, he didn't get a chance to do that because they came knocking on the door to search the room and they found her under his bed. Now, when he's charged with this crime, he goes for an arraignment, and however, the judge determines that this guy needs a psych evaluation because something's not right with this guy. And a state psychiatrist sits down, interviews with him, talks to him. He later tells the court, so this guy has a very, very low IQ. As a matter of fact, the IQ is 57, which I want to say any IQ under 70 is considered retarded. And the psychiatrist also tells the court that Mr. Roberts doesn't really know, in fact, the ramifications or the trouble that he's in. I asked him, do you know what could possibly happen to you if you're found guilty in a court of law? And so the creep murderer, he tells the psychiatrist, he says, yeah, they're either going to fry my brain, inject poison into me, or they're going to put me on probation and make me go to different schools telling them the dangers of drug use. This guy, by the court's determination, he's not all the way there. I mean, you can tell in that booking photo that, you know, the lights are on, but nobody's home. So for the next some odd amount of years, he is at the Fulton State Mental Hospital, and their hopes, the court's hopes, are to fix his brain in words in layman's terms, and then get him to where he can comprehend what could possibly happen to him, because the death penalty, it is on the table. However, they were never able to ascertain his ability to comprehend what could possibly happen to him, because, well, they feel that he doesn't know what he knows what he did was wrong, but he doesn't know what could possibly happen. And I don't know why the court determined that he was unfit to go on trial. So the last update that I heard about this case was that it was either 2018 or 2022, the judge ruled that a trial could not proceed because he doesn't comprehend what's taking place. So it says online that they dismissed this case. I don't know if that's a typo, without prejudice, meaning that they can later, you know, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that they could refile charges and charge him with her murder. But from what I can see, that ain't never going to happen. So for the rest of his entire life, he's going to be held at that mental hospital, and that's it. And to make matters even sadder is that, you know, for all of Jasmine's life, you know, there has been somewhat of not an open case, but there has been calls to the Child Social Services of Kansas and Missouri reporting Jasmine's mom for neglect and abuse. Somebody made calls stating that, you know, where they live at, there's roaches and maggots there, and, you know, she's going around hungry, wearing dirty clothes and so forth. And every time they would check up on the family, there was never any cause to take Jasmine out of the home. However, it took her murder for Child Social Services to deem that there was some kind of neglect going on. And they said that basically them being two neglectful parents, part of the reason why this happened was because they just were not keeping an eye on her. Not watching your children. Jasmine was described as a beautiful little girl with a heart of gold who was not a picky eater. Her favorite foods were hamburgers, spaghetti and meatballs, and Happy Meals from McDonald's. And her favorite colors were pink, purple, and the all-time favorite of hers, glitter. And all she ever wanted to do in her life when she grew up, she always talked about that she wanted to be a cheerleader when she grew up. That's all she wanted to be, was a cheerleader. And the life of a little girl was destroyed in room 155. We're going to go back to May 29th of 2021. We're at Famous Dave's restaurant here, and the restaurant closes, and two of the servers who used to work here, 38-year-old Crystal Bull and 39-year-old Richard McMahon, they get off of work and they walk to the back of the restaurant right here to get into their cars. Little do they know is that there is a scumbag that's been walking around this area, and he's looking for someone to rob so he can get money so he can do more drugs. So this guy walking around this area sees these two people, sees that they're servers. He's like, oh, they probably got a bunch of money. They probably made a bunch of tips. So he goes up to both Crystal and Richard, sticks a gun in their face and says, give me all your money. Now, normally, because I've been in this situation, and listen, this situation, this sucks because you have no power. You don't have a gun and you got one pointed at your face. In the situation, you give them exactly what they want. However, one of the servers wants to start an argument for some reason or another. So instead of arguing with them, he decides to shoot each one of them in the head. Then he takes off like a bat out of hell. By the time paramedics come to the location, there's little that they can do. Both Richard and Crystal lost their lives right here in the very back of this restaurant. Now, there was some kind of like a memorial alongside part of this wooden fence. Now, of course, I didn't expect it to still be here. That's going to be long gone. Restaurant's not going to want any kind of remembrance of a vicious double murder that occurred right here. Now, when the police start investigating this crime, they're gathering video evidence, all of the cameras from surrounding businesses in the area. Now, they did get a video of the killer running away from the scene, and they, from the video, identified him as being a suspect in another robbery that occurred at a garage not too far from here. And in that video, the guy is along with a female suspect. So these two people are now wanted in connection with this double homicide. So this case would go dormant for a little while, but then a couple people, they called the police and they say, yeah, we think it's this guy, we think it's that guy. So they get a couple names of persons of interest in this case. One of the names of the female, they actually track her down to St. Augustine, Florida. And when they grab her, they arrest her, and then they start grilling her, and she gives them a name that they've confirmed, and that's the same guy that they're looking for. And they tell, she tells them, last time I heard, he was in Boston, Massachusetts. As the recording of this video, Mendez Torres is sitting in the Taney County Jail with no bond, and the next court date that I see on the docket is in December for some form or another of a hearing, and then he has another court date in February. I do not know why this has been postponed so many times. The mothers of both victims in this matter have sued not only Mendez Torres, but have sued Famous Dave's. The reason being, they say, is because Famous Dave's did not provide, I guess they can say, adequate security for their employees when they get off of work. I don't know if they have a case. I don't know what they expect Famous Dave's to do. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible story of a piece of filth that decides to prey on innocent people just working a normal job. And however, I'm not sure what this owner of this place is supposed to do. I mean, what do you do? Like, have armed security for your servers when they get off of work? I hate to sound cold-hearted, but I'm not sure. Maybe there was a light that was burnt out. I have no idea. So hopefully that gets resolved, and ultimately the family gets the justice that they deserve.
When officers got to this home on Walnut Street Sunday morning, inside a bleeding William Dub Dustin told them Mom did it. Mom was 46-year-old Jane Dustin, described as deeply religious, and along with her family, involved in her church and community.
The Dustin family.
This 6-member coroner's jury today decided she shot and killed her husband Tom Dustin in his sleep, then walked through the house shooting her children. 21-year-old Leslie and 16-year-old Mary Beth died. 17-year-old Dub survived. Investigators speculate Mrs. Dustin may have been depressed after recent cancer surgery, and they have learned that in the last week she talked of killing her family.
She had made threats that this could and would happen. They had been in touch with Tom to warn him of this.
Did her family take this threat seriously?
I would presume to an extent in that Tom's husband supposedly got the guns out of the house, or thought he had.
Ironically, her doctor had apparently told Jane Dustin she was getting better.
No, I believe she was on her way to recover physically. It was her mental state that she was having problems with.
The jury's decision, along with reports from investigators, now go to the Taney County prosecutor, who will make a final determination whether any charges in this case need to be filed. In Branson, Scott Boyd, Color 10 News Beat.
This is the house where the murders occurred almost 35 years ago. Jane Dustin wanted her family to arrive at the pearly gates all together, and that was the rationale in her mind at the time of the murders. Normally when families talk about stuff like that, you want to go out in your own time, hopefully on your own terms, hopefully of old age. But she wanted all of her family members with her together to arrive in heaven, and she was going to do it by her own hand. This is the final resting place of the Dustin family. You have the woman who killed her husband and her 2 daughters here, Sydney Jane Dustin. Tommy, her husband. And on the other side of the family marker, you have Leslie and Mary Beth. So her son, 17-year-old William Dustin, he survived the shooting barely, like I said, and when they life flighted him to the helicopter, he was saying, when he was talking about that day, that he started coughing up blood, or I think more like vomiting blood, and he heard the helicopter pilot, like, he heard him coughing up blood, and he turns around and he looks at him and he says, "Oh, bleep." Can you imagine, like, you're in a helicopter and somebody says it to you, and as you're dying, literally, you know, practically dying? Yeah, definitely not a good sign that you were going to survive, but thankfully he did. He actually ended up becoming the prosecuting attorney here in Branson, Missouri. He actually just passed not too long ago at the age of 49. I don't know how he died. If I find out, I'll put it on the screen. Died very young, only 49 years old. And he's not buried with his family here. He's somewhere, I believe, in this cemetery. I haven't seen his marker yet, but Yeah, just mental illness. That's all it was. And, you know, what more can you say? A terrible tragedy.
Millen, would you like 30 seconds more?
Allow me to introduce myself. I represent the rent that's too damn high party. People are working 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week, and some a third job. Women can't afford to take care of their children, feed their children breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My main job is to provide a roof over your head, food on the table, and money in your pocket. This is politics as usual. Playing a silly game. It's not going to happen. The rent too damn high movement, the people I'm here to represent can't afford to pay their rent. They're being laid off right now as I speak. They can't eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Listen, someone's stomach, child's stomach just growled. Did you hear it? You gotta listen like me.
Okay,
let's
Mr.
talk
McMillan.
about the issue.
Mr.
People can't afford to pay their
Cuomo,
rent.
30
Stop.
seconds for you, sir.
Rent is too damn high.
Everybody laughed, but nobody listened. And I've been trying to not pay rent for the last 20 years of my life because I agree, it is too damn high, especially nowadays. Our attention is brought forward to these apartments right here. These are the Branson Manor apartments. This is an apartment complex for seniors, probably 55 and older. So just not too long ago, last year, October 5th, 2023, it's about 11, a little after 11 a.m. And somebody, well, probably a few residents in this complex, they call 911. They could have sworn that they heard shots fired very close to where they're at. So Branson police, they come to the location and they go to the manager's office and the door's locked in one of the office areas. So they get a maintenance man with a key to open it. When they open the door, they discover lying on the floor the body of the manager of this complex, 47-year-old Whitney Davis. And not very far from where Whitney Davis was located, they find a man that used to live here, one Stephen Walsh, 77 years of age, on the ground. What a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. They were both dead. And, well, there's not much to this case that I can add other than to say that they believe that this stems from a rent dispute. That's all I could find online. There was a rental increase, and I guess Walsh felt that he couldn't afford it, so there was only one way out of the situation. And, you know, did the unfathomable. And this woman left behind a husband and 3 kids, all because of a madman. Couldn't deal with a small increase in rent.
But we begin as a Tulsa couple's Branson getaway turns deadly. Police say a Tulsa man shot and killed his girlfriend in a Branson motel before turning the gun on himself.
Here tonight are actually seeing learn the couple had a troubled relationship.
Scott and Terry, Cameron Davis and Amy Dawson have been together for 6 years. Amy's family says the two had an abusive relationship, and they feared this might eventually happen.
And I just tried to, tell Amy she just needed to be careful, and you just hope that your worst fears are not realized.
For this grieving mother, that fear became a reality. On Saturday night, Branson police were called to the Queen Anne Motel on the city's main drive. They found Amy Dawson dead and her boyfriend Cameron Davis barely hanging on. Amy's mom says investigators told her Davis shot Amy in the head while she was sleeping. She says officers also told her he turned the gun on himself and shot twice, first aiming for his chest, but instead the bullet hit his lungs. Then he shot himself in the head. He later died at the hospital.
Not even have a fighting chance to be able to try to defend your own life is cowardly. It's very cowardly for someone else to take your life like that.
Ruth explains the couple's relationship was rocky at times, but for the past few weeks, everything appeared to be fine.
We'd tried to shelter Amy, but you have to let your kids live their own life, and it's a very hard lesson to let them do that.
Amy was a Sperry High School graduate. The 27-year-old was a nurse with hopes of one day becoming a doctor.
If you meet Amy, you just understand she's just that bubbly, and even if you don't know her, you love her. She's one of those kind of people.
Branson police are still investigating what led to this murder-suicide, but police suspect the couple had been drinking heavily and smoking marijuana.
She tried some things in her life also, but the ultimate end to her life was not something that was deserved. It was not something that anybody should have to go through, because you should never have to bury your child.
Amy's mother says her daughter was the glue that helped keep the family together, and it's tough knowing her little girl was taken too soon.
That helpless feeling as a parent when you know that your daughter is in a very abusive relationship and ultimately there's really nothing that you can do. You can try to guide them and help them in their lives, but it's ultimately up to the woman to at least try to make an attempt to seek help and to seek refuge from that abusive relationship. I bet you most of the people waiting to get on that ride back there may not know this, but somebody sadly lost their life only but a few years ago. So back on July 20th of 2022, 31-year-old ride mechanic Joshua Outhouse, who had been working for Silver Dollar City for the last 9 years, on that day he was at work, and one of the riders had complained that the ride was what they called bumpy. So him and another coworker, they go to the ride, and so the management tells Joshua to stand by the ride with a radar gun. So they're going to be taking the speed readings of the ride as it's passing through. So he's watching Joshua, who's about 6 feet away from the track or so. And so he has a radio, so each time the roller coaster comes by, he radios in how fast the ride is going. So they do like 5 readings. On the 6th time that the ride goes through, Joshua didn't radio the speed. So he radios him, "Hey, Josh, where you at? Josh, there's no response." So the guy goes to where Joshua is supposed to be, and he sees him on the ground with what he called a massive head wound. And so they call for 911, and they actually had to life flight him from Branson 40 miles north to Springfield, but sadly he lost his life. Now, I'm pretty sure the parents are probably, of course, in the process of suing the park, and OSHA, which is the governing body for work-related incidences, safety protocols and such. They ended up fining Silver Dollar City $14,000 because they said that they basically did not have proper measurements in place to make sure that things like this on that ride did not happen. So they got fined, and right now, like I said, I'm pretty sure the parents are going through some kind of proceedings in terms of them suing this place. Did not read anything online about actually what he was hit with or anything. I don't know if he was hit by the ride. Obviously, he was hit by something, because I don't know if there was any cameras in that area to see actually what took place.